Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Tonight's guests, it's a yearly tradition at this point. Jeffrey Byrnes of the Daily Gallop and Horse Racing Nation to talk Kentucky Derby. How are you, Jeff?
Hey Madison, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Alrighty. So, you know the drill. It's the Kentucky Derby. It's Saturday. What time? Like 6:50 approximately? You would say it goes off?
Yeah, yep, about 6:50 will be the post time for the Derby come Saturday.
Yep, on NBC, called by the great oh my god, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name from Port
Larry
Muhammad.
Collins.
Yeah, Larry Colmus. He's wonderful, and I think he's one of the best broadcasters. So I just wanted to give that a shout real quick. I
Yeah, he's
absolutely love him.
definitely one of the best in the business for sure.
Yeah, and he doesn't get talked about in terms of great announcers. Okay, so the first horse we'll discuss is the one horse. It's Hit Show. Currently 31 to 1. Brad Cox, the trainer. Manny Franco's the jockey. Tell us about Hit Show.
Well, when it comes to Hit Show, I really wish this horse did not draw the inside post because I think if he had gone much further outside, he would have had a better chance of winning this race. But the job that he got, it's obviously nature. It is what it is. But Hit Show is a really nice, talented horse. He's 3 for 5 in his career so far. Although he's coming off of a runaround finish at the Wood Memorial back on April 8th. The 3 wins, all were either a maiden or allowance company, actually, I'm sorry, his first 2 wins were a maiden allowance company. Then he stepped up in the stakes competition for the first time when he won the Grade 3 Wither Stakes at Aqueduct back on February 11th. The competition that day wasn't nearly as strong as it will be on Saturday come Derby Day. Manny Franco and trainer Brad Cox have teamed up together a bunch of times in the past. And so his show is going to be interesting to see what kind of trip he works out from the rail. He's usually like a mid-pack, almost stalker type from the inside. It's going to be interesting to see if he does get sent from the rail. I don't suspect he will, but he's going to have to work out a trip from the inside, maybe trying to come off the rail. His speed figures are pretty subpar compared to some of the others in here, but I think if he works out a trip and he gets saves ground on the inside, he could be running late, but it's going to be tough overall.
Yeah, 31 to 1, and that inside post certainly. The 2 horses verifying 24 to 1 are the current odds, but the morning line odds 15 to 1. So his price plummeted a little bit. Brad Cox is another Brad Cox horse. Tell us about verifying.
So Verifying has been a very interesting horse for a while now. He actually broke his maiden at Saratoga in late August of last year. He did compete in a bunch of 2-year-old stakes races, was most notably runner-up in the Grade 1 Champagne, one of the biggest 2-year-old races in the country. He ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last fall at Keeneland, where he had gate problems that day, stumbled at the start, and really never got into contention. And he's run 3 times so far this year. He won his first race, an allowance race at Oaklawn Park. He caught a a muddy track at Oaklawn as well a month later when he was 4th in the Grade 2 Rebel. And, this horse can be also sometimes, like, you could be urged needs to go a little more. Tyler Gaffalione jumps aboard for the Kentucky Derby. And certainly, I think he does have a good chance if he can work out a trip again along the inside. He's another one of these horses that can come from off the pace. His run in the Bluegrass, I thought, was his best effort to date. He had a good trip from the inside, and then he got into the clear. And along the way, he ran into Tapit Trice, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But he's a very interesting horse. His sire actually is Justified, who actually won the Triple Crown in 2018. This is his very first crop to race. And lo and behold, he has his first Derby runner. So, very interesting pedigree on Verifying. Brad Cox, the trainer. Tyler Gaffalione, probably the best jockey in Kentucky right now. So, obviously, a jockey-trainer combo you want. So, if he can work out a trip and save some ground, and he'll definitely be coming at the end.
All right, yeah, Verifying seems like an interesting longer shot potential pick. Oh, here's a good name. Two Phils, the 3 horse. He was 12-1 on the morning line, down the 9-1, so he's being bet on. This is Larry Ravelli's horse. Tell us about Two Phils.
So two Phil, this is one of the most experienced horses in the field. This will be his 9th start coming up on Saturday. He has traveled really all over the country so far in his young career. He's raced in Kentucky. He's raced in Virginia. He actually won a stakes race in Minnesota as a 2-year-old before coming back to Kentucky to finish his 2-year-old season. He won 3 out of 5 starts, including the Shakopee Juvenile at Canterbury Park in Minnesota. And he actually does have a win over the Churchill Downs Surface when he won the Grade 3 Street Sense last October. He was given a little break after that win at Churchill Downs and Street Sense. He came back to the fairgrounds where he ran a pretty good second into the Grade 3 in the comp in early January. I thought he would run much better than that in the Risen Star, where he took the lead turning for home, but he kind of flattened down at the stretch, and he actually finished okay third in that race. And excuse me, but there were some questions as to whether he would actually want to go the mile and an eighth. So the connections, including Larry Ravelli, took him to Turfway Park, where he actually ran the best race of his career in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, where he won that race going away. The biggest, and he's trained really well coming out of that race. He actually ran a really good workout last weekend at Hawthorne near Chicago. So he's coming into this race fresh. He does have a win over the Churchill Surface. My biggest question for him is, can he get the 1.25 mile distance? His sire, Hardspun, was runner-up in the Kentucky Derby back in 2007. But to me, when he runs on dirt, he doesn't really have the same kick as he ran on a synthetic at Turfway Park. They're two very different surfaces that he won the Jeff Ruby Stakes on at Turfway, and the surface he's going to run on at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Even though he does have a win over the surface, I do have questions about whether he can get the distance. If he does, I think he'll definitely be around at the end and should be strongly considered for the exotics.
All right, yeah, well, I'll keep Two Phils in mind in terms of a potential pick at the end. You never know. The 4-horse, Confidence Game, 20-1. The line has not moved on that one. This is J. Keith the Sormux. How do you pronounce that last name?
Keith DeZormo.
DeZormo. Yes, DeZormo. Tell us about Confidence Game.
So, Confidence Game, this is one of the most interesting horses in the field to me because despite this will be his 8th start coming up in the Kentucky Derby, but he has not run a race since February 25th when he won the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park. And he'll be coming into the Derby off a 10-week layoff. There has not been a horse that has won a Kentucky Derby off of more than a 7-week layoff since 1929. So history is not on Confidence Game side when it comes to the lengthy layoff. When he won the Grade 2 Rebel, he came from off the pace and showed a new dimension in that race. But he has, in the past, he did win a race at Churchill Downs on Thanksgiving weekend where he did go wire to wire, so he has shown speed in the past. He's probably the most experienced horse in the field when it comes to running at Churchill Downs. This will be his 5th race at Churchill. But the lengthy layoff does concern me quite a bit because he's never run past a mile and a 16th distance. Saturday's going to be going 1.25 miles. Now he does have the pedigree to get I think he does have the pedigree to get the 1.25 miles distance. He has been showing good workouts in the morning. I heard from a lot of people that Confidence Game is really impressing a lot of clockers and a lot of trainers down there. But he's gonna have a tough trip from pole position number 4. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he does because he does have speed. He can lay off the pace and he can be a closer. He's done all 3 of those things in his career. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much pace there is going to be in this race, so it would not surprise me if James Graham, his jockey, tries to get good position and sends him either to the front or just right off the leaders in the early going. So, obviously, as far as like the lengthy layoff, like I said, it does concern me, but I think if Keith DeSormo has done a really nice job with horses coming off a lengthy layoff, so I think he absolutely can be a player in this race.
Alrighty, next up is Tapit Trice. This is one of the better horses in the field, 5-1. His odds Have not moved. Todd Pletcher's horse. Tell us about Tap It Trice.
Yes, so this is be the first of 3 for trainer Todd Pletcher, and this is the most expensive horse of any in the race running on Saturday. His connections, Whisper Hill Farms, purchased him for $1.3 million at the Keeneland September yearling sale in 2021. So there were very high expectations for Tap It Trice right away, and so far he's lived up to it. After what I thought was a good third in his career debut, he's routed off 4 straight wins, including the Tampa Bay Derby and the Grade 1 Toyota Bluegrass Stakes, where he just outfinished Verifying at the end. I do have concerns with Tap It Trice, though, because even though he does have a lot of talent, I actually think he has one of the best pedigrees to win the Belmont Stakes more than the Kentucky Derby than anything. So, wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't win Saturday. We see him at Belmont Park come first Saturday in June, or it's the second Saturday in June. I'm sorry, but Tap It Trice, to me, he needs to have a better gate break than he has shown in the past. His win in the Tampa Bay Derby, although it was impressive, he basically walked out of the starting gate and was spotting the field last. He did get a good pace in front of him to chase, and ultimately his class prevailed at the end, but he has to do a better job breaking out the starting gate. And considering there's going to be 20 other horses in him in the starting gate, if he gets off to a bad start, it could spell trouble for him right away. So he is a deep closer, so I don't know if it would affect him too much. But as long as if he doesn't get a good clean break from the gate, he could be in trouble on Saturday.
Alrighty, yeah, I'll keep the Belmont point in mind come June when we do the Belmont show. That's a really interesting point there. The 6th horse is King's Byrnes. Right now, 11-1, opened at 12-1. This is another Todd Pletcher horse. Tell us about King's Byrnes.
So the King's Byrnes is the second of 3 for Todd Pletcher. He's one of the most lightly raced horses in the field. This will only be his 4th career start. He actually made his career debut back on January 14th, and he won that race impressively going away. The Connections wanted to give him a 2-turn race for his next start, so it took him to Tampa Bay down, and he won that race very impressively. And that's when the Connections decided to give him a shot on the Kentucky Derby trail. So for his 3rd start, he went to Louisiana for the Louisiana Derby at the fairgrounds, and he got a very, very good trip in that race. There was no speed in the race. There was no pace to chase. So his jockey at the time was Flavian Pratt, who was aboard. He's actually not going to be aboard him for Saturday, but he took him to the lead. He set very slow fractions and ultimately won the race going away. But I just don't see him getting that kind of trip on Saturday. I think there's a lot more speed in the race. I don't think he can get to the front. Now, he has won the pass from off the pace, and his speed figures have been very good considering some of the other competition in here. But yeah, King's Byrnes, I mean, while he is light on experience, he does have plenty of talent in front of him. So I'm not exactly sure if is good enough to win this race with just a short experience. But he's a very talented horse with it. We could hear more from in the future. If he wins Saturday, great. But I don't know if he's going to be a top choice for me.
Alrighty. Next on the docket is Reincarnate. Wow. This horse opened at 50-1 all the way down to 16-1, which is wild. This is Tim Yachteen's horse. How did Reincarnate go from 50-1 to 16-1?
Sounds like somebody made a pretty big, large bet on him. So, Reincarnate. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he's somewhere between 9 or 12-1 come post time. Reincarnate actually has an interesting story behind it. He actually started his career with trainer Bob Baffert as a 2-year-old and early into his 3-year-old season. But obviously, because Baffert is suspended from Churchill Downs until the end of the spring-summer meet this year, in order to qualify for Derby points, Reincarnate's Connections had to transfer him. So Tim Yachteen now is the trainer of Reincarnate, and he inherited a pretty good horse. After 3 straight runner-up finishes in his 2-year-old season, he won his maiden race at Del Mar, and then in his stakes debut in the Shan, he went to the lead and had never looked back. He held on to pretty good horses. He was actually one of the favorites during the winter of he was among the best 3-year-olds in the country during the winter, but over time, He had 2 races at Oaklawn Park that were considered minor disappointments. The Grade 2 Rebel Stakes, where he was third behind Confidence Game. A lot of people were impressed with his stretch run when he was passing horses left and right, but the Arkansas Derby, he had a much better trip, a much cleaner trip, and he was passed, and he just never could re-rally. I thought it was a little bit of a disappointing effort that day, but he's been training really, really well in California coming into this race. He actually fired a really fast 4 furlong workout on April 28th. And this is a horse that I think could be sent to the lead. His jockey John Velasquez has won multiple Kentucky Derbies in the past. Including with Authentic in 2020, where he wasn't really known for his speed, but he sent him to the front and he never looked back that day. And it wouldn't surprise me if Reincarnated is in front early on, because I think that's his best chance of winning. Even though he hasn't been off the board in 7 career starts, unless he gets to the front and slows the pace down, I think it could be a tough day for him.
Alrighty, I gotta keep my eye on Reincarnate, because usually when odds go down like that, something's up. Next up is Mage. Currently 18-1. Morning line was 15-1. Tell us about Mage, who was Gustavo Delgado's horse.
So Mage, this horse is a wild card to me in a lot of ways, because even though he only has 3 career starts, this horse has a lot of talent in him. He won his first career race. His first career race he won going away. It was a 7 furlong sprint back on January 28th. And the connections threw him immediately into the tough waters, into the Fountain of Youth, where he was 4th behind Forte and a couple other dirty runners who we'll get to in a little bit. But I thought it was a very good 4th that day, even though he broke away from the gate very slowly. And then in the Florida Derby, where he was a much improved 2nd, he again had gate troubles, broke away from the gate slowly, actually took the lead turning for home before he was passed by Forte late. And so, to me, this horse has a lot of talent, but I think he's way too inexperienced to possibly win this race. I mean, I think he could be around at the end to get into the exotics, but he doesn't break well from the gate. He has to learn to settle down, and it's going to be a tough trip, I think, from the inside post or post 7 or post 8, I believe. And so I do like his talent. While I do like a lot of things about him, I just worry about him breaking away from the gate and just not settling down. If he can't do that, it's going to be a tough trip for him.
All right, next is the Skinner is scratched. He was the 9 horse. Or no, wait a minute. No, that's my mistake. 10 was scratched. Skinner's the 9 horse. He's 20-1. I thought the 9 was scratched. It's the 10 that's scratched that you alluded to. So Skinner's 20-1. Tell us about Skinner, who is trained by John Sheriffs.
So Skinner, this horse to me, I think, has a pretty interesting chance in here, depending on how the pace scenario goes. Because he is a deep closer. He is not going to be, you're not going to see him in the early quarter miles of the race. He's going to be way far back in the pack. This will be his 7th career start. He ran 3 times as a 2-year-old, and he did not win a race, even though he did run a couple Grade 1 races. He did not win his first race, actually, until February 12th of this year, where he, after having some time to, grow up a little bit after a lengthy 2-year-old season, he won a race impressively, and then they threw him right back into stakes competition. He was a good 3rd behind Practical Move, who was entered in Derby, but unfortunately scratched this morning because he came up with a temperature. And then he had a wide trip that day. It looked like he was going to be a must-leader turning for home before he flattened out a little bit. The Santa Anita Derby, where he also finished 3rd, same thing. He had a very wide trip. Looked like he had a lot of run turning for home, and then kind of flattened out in the stretch. So I think he does get a good post position today for post 9. He's not going to be among the pace setters, so he should be far in the back of the pack. His Juan Hernandez's jockey is going to be aboarded for the very first time. He's probably the best rider in California right now, so I think it's a big upgrade from his last jockey, who was Victor Espinoza. So Juan Hernandez, I think, will know this horse well, get him to settle into a good trip, and if he does get a favorable pace scenario, I really do like his chances of being around at the end.
Alrighty, already mentioned Practical Move scratched. 11 is Disarm, 30-1 on the morning line, but down to 29-1. Steven Asmussen is the trainer. Tell us about Disarm.
So this horse at Disarm was one of the most exciting 2-year-olds of 2022. But unfortunately, after his maiden win, he was not seen again. He broke his maiden on August 6th in very impressive fashion. But I guess he suffered some kind of setback and was not seen again until February 19th at Oaklawn Park, where he was a good second in an allowance company for his first race in 6 months. And then his connections opted to try the Derby Trail. They took him to Louisiana, where he was in the same race. He was second in the Louisiana Derby and was behind Kings Barnes. Kings Barnes set a very slow practice that day and went wire to wire. The only horse closing from the back of the pack was Disarm. And you could tell he wanted every single inch of the mile and 3/16 of the Louisiana Derby distance. And now he gets to go an extra quarter of a mile in the Kentucky Derby. So I did like his race that day. The Connections did opt to run him 20 days later in the Lexington Stakes because they thought they wouldn't have enough points to run in the Kentucky Derby. And the race, I think the mile and 16th race was just a little bit too short for him. He did finish third. It wasn't exactly the most inspiring performance. I honestly thought this horse was going to skip the Kentucky Derby because of the performance he gave that day, but he's here and he's in this race, and he actually has been training really well coming in. He's going to be another one of these horses where he's going to need pace to run into, and I think he can get it. So I think he is going to be around at the end. I think unless he works out a good trip, Joel Rosario, his jockey does, it's going to be a tough time for him to get to the win.
Alrighty. Next up is the 12 horse Jace's Road, 50 to 1. Down to 32 to 1. Actually, 50 to 1 was the morning line. This is another Brad Cox horse. Tell us about Jace's Road.
So Jace's Road is a horse that has been kind of hot and cold in his career. He won his first career race very impressively at Ellis Park in August of last year. Then he was third in the Iroquois, and pretty good third in the Iroquois. And then afterwards, he ran a really disappointing race in the Street Sense behind Two Phils. And then he was given a little bit of time off, and then he came back at the fairgrounds to conclude his 2-year-old season, where he did go wire to wire in the Gun Runner Stakes in order to begin getting Kentucky Derby points. The biggest problem with Jace's Road is that his 2 poor performances have come on sloppy racetracks or muddy racetracks. There might be some rain in the forecast on Saturday. Right now, it's kind of iffy. So if the race does turn up sloppy, I automatically would probably throw him off your tickets. But he did finish a good third in the Louisiana Derby. That's what got him into the Kentucky Derby in the first place. He's going to be one of these horses that is going to be on the lead or very close to the pace. Him and Reincarnate could possibly be the leaders turning into the backstretch or going into the far turn. I just have questions about can he truly go the mile and a quarter distance. I'm not sure. Florent Giroux, I think, could be aggressive with him up front. He does have a lot of talent, but I don't know if it will come full on Saturday.
Alrighty. Sun Thunder's next. Also 51 from the morning line down to 27 to 1. So Sun Thunder's taking money. Kenneth McPeak's the trainer. Tell us about Sun Thunder.
So Sun Thunder, here's a horse who this will be his 7th career start. Kenny McPeak sent him in here. He did run some pretty good races in his career. His last 2 have been a little bit of disappointments. Even though before that he was second in the Grade 2 Risen Star behind Angel of Empire, who we'll get to in a little bit. The Louisiana Derby, he was pace compromised that day, had a pretty troubled trip. Came back and he finished 5th. The Connections brought him back 2 weeks later because they wanted to get some Derby points to get into the field. And he finished a pretty lackluster 4th, a long way back of Tapit Trice and Verifying. Wasn't exactly the most inspiring effort in that field in that day. Now Kenny McPeak is going to put the blinkers on Sun Thunder for this race, and the blinkers are supposed to keep him more focused, keep his head straight. So maybe that can help him. He has looked impressive in the mornings since putting on the blinkers for a couple of fast workouts in a row at Churchill Downs. He is another horse that is going to be pace dependent, so I could see him around the middle, towards the end of the group, going down the backstretch. if he gets a pretty fast pace, he could close into it fast. But ultimately, he does have to work out a good trip to be around at the end.
Alrighty. Angel of Empire's next. This is one of the favorites. Currently 6-1. Morning line was 8-1. Guess what? Another Brad Cox horse. Tell us about Angel of Empire.
Yeah, Brad Cox has a lot of runners in this Derby field. He probably has the best crop of 3-year-olds in this barn right now. Angel of Empire, to me, I think is the best of his horses in this year's field. He's been on a roll the last two races. His run of the Risen Star, going a mile and an eighth, where worked his way through traffic and ultimately came out on top of it. It was a very, very large field of 14 that day. His run in the Arkansas Derby, to me, was probably my favorite of all the Derby preps. A pretty moderate pace that was set by Reincarnate that day. Angel of Empire, who just like a bunch of others in here, is a stalker slash closer. And he was passing horses one by one, and he won that race going away. It was really, really impressive what Angel of Empire did that day. Flavian Pratt, the interesting thing about his jockey, this will be Flavian Pratt's 6th Kentucky Derby mount, and he's finished in the top 3 4 times. So this is a jockey who knows his way around Churchill Downs. He knows his way around the Kentucky Derby. And it's a pretty good angle if you like Classic Empire. He teams up here. Angel of Empire. I'm sorry, his tire is Classic Empire. But yeah, I like the way he is been coming on in the mornings as well as workouts. I really think he could get a pace to run into. I like the fact that he's coming around at the right time. He's peaking at the right time. And I think this horse definitely is a live play.
Alrighty. I agree with you. And Forte. I love this Forte horse. Currently 9-2. Morning line was 3-1. So a little bit over, like the odds went a little down for Forte. So Forte looks like he's plus 250 right now. Another Todd Pletcher horse. Tell us about Forte, who's the favorite to win this race.
Well, Forte, in terms of experience, in terms of speed figures, he's definitely, in my opinion, the best horse in this field as far as talent goes. He's the reigning 2-year-old champion. He won 3 Grade 1 races as a 2-year-old. The Hopeful at Saratoga, the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. And then again at Keeneland, he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to secure the 2-year-old title. And he's come back better than ever as a 3-year-old. He won the Fountain of Youth extremely impressively over horses like Mage and Rocky Can and Cyclo Mischief, who a couple of horses we'll get to in a little while. His run in the Florida Derby was really interesting because he was supposed to face a short field that day. Actually, the entries came up large, and he got a far outside draw. And it looked like turning for home that Forte was going to finish off the board. It looked like it was just going to be a bad run. But the way he just gobbled up the ground coming down the stretch and to pass Mage towards the wire and really just almost kind of like eased up at the end was extremely impressive. I mean, this horse definitely is the cream of the crop, or cream of this crop. And I think he's got obviously one of the best trainers in the country in Todd Pletcher, one of the best riders, Irad Ortiz Jr. So this horse, I think, can absolutely get the 1.25 mile distance. The question is from his post position, can he work out a good trip? Can he work out weaving his way through traffic? But if he can, I think this horse is 100% going to be the favorite, and he's definitely among the favorites to win.
Alrighty. 16 is Raise Cane. This is one of my favorite names of one of the horses. 50-1 morning line down to 33-1. This is Ben Colebrook's horse. Tell us about Raise Cane.
So Raise Cane, this is a nice story. This is Ben Colebrook's first Kentucky Derby starter as a trainer. His jockey Gerardo Corrales, also his first ride in the Kentucky Derby. And it comes aboard a horse who I think has a lot of question marks as he wants to go 1.25 miles. Now, his career has been interesting. He's won 2 of his 7 career starts. He won the Grade 3 Gotham over a sloppy racetrack at Aqueduct back on March 4th. And when he ran on the Bluegrass Stakes, it was kind of lackluster for the most part. He worked out a good trip. He had a middle trip, and he really didn't pick up the pace as they turned for home. The only other time he was off the board was on the synthetic at Turfway Park. So I think he is a good dirt horse, and I think he can run on the Churchill Downs surface. The question is, just like others, he is going to be another one of these late closers. Can he work out a good trip? He's probably going to be among the biggest long shots in this field. I think deservedly so, because just his run in the Gauntlet, he got an extremely fast pace up front. He was bobbing his way through horses and ultimately won going away. He didn't exactly get down in the bluegrass. It's going to be interesting to see if he gets that in the Kentucky Derby, but I don't know. He has more of like a sprinter / miler type pedigree. I'll be very surprised if he can get the mile and a quarter distance. So, while I think he does have a lot of talent, I think ultimately his better days are going to come sprinting in the future.
Alrighty. 17, I think, is one of the more interesting horses in the whole field. Derma Sotogate, a Japanese horse, 12-1. Morning line was 10-1. Tell us about Derma Sotogate.
All right, so the pronunciation, it's Derma Sotogake.
Sotogake.
So this horse is definitely one of the most intriguing horses in this field because after he got off to a little bit of a lackluster start, since breaking his maiden in Japan on October 2nd, he's won 4 of his next 5 starts. His run in the UAE Derby was one of the most, I think, arguably one of the most impressive of any 3-year-old in the world because he went to the lead. He said pretty quick fractions that he just kept on going. He has such breathtaking strides. He's a big, beautiful horse. He's been getting over the Church Renown service pretty good. I mean, sometimes some people will say when they see his workouts in the morning that it's like, I don't know if I like what I see here, but he's such a beautiful horse and an extremely good mover. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does because he did win the UAE Derby going wire to wire, but in the past he has won races coming from off the pace. And considering he's going to be from the far outside, I think he will be sent early on. The biggest thing that does go against him, though, is there has never been a horse that has won the UAE Derby, has come over to the U.S. and ended up winning the Kentucky Derby. So he does have history against him. But horses based in Japan, though, have been winning races all over the world, both turf and dirt. I mean, they've won some big races. They did win a couple of races at the Breeders' Cup a couple of years ago at Del Mar. It feels like the way things are setting up that Japan is really set up to possibly win a Kentucky Derby this year, whether it's Derma Sotogake, Continuar, who we'll get to in a little bit, or Mandarin Hero, who drew into the field today. But Derma Sotogake, I think, is the best of the 3. He has good cruising speed. He has a lot of potential in him, and he's certainly going to be a top choice for me.
Alrighty, next, Rocket Can. 30-1 on the morning line, up to 32-1. This is one of the longer shots. William Mott is the trainer. Let's talk about Rocket Can.
So Rocket Can, this is the horse who back in the winter was getting a lot of buzz on the Derby Trail. Although last fall he did break his maiden at Church Renown, so he does have a win over the surface. He did win the Holy Bowl on February 4th at Gulfstream Park, although the field that day was not very strong. It's kind of really more on the weaker side of one of the Triple Crown preps this year. He was a well-beaten second behind Forte in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. The speed figures were a little bit subpar that day. Then the Connections took him to Oaklawn Park for the Arkansas Derby, and Angel of Empire left him basically in disgust that day. Even though he did have a wide trip, he didn't really took some dirt in the face, didn't really like it. So he did finish 4th that day. It was a little bit disappointing. Since coming out of the race, though, he has worked extremely well at Churchill Downs. Does get back to a service I think he'll like. The 18 post to me is, I think does kind of have a big deal because he is going to have to work out a trip from the outside, and he didn't really exactly run well with a wide trip last time in the Arkansas Derby. Plus, I don't exactly sure how far he wants to go. His sire Into Mischief, who's actually probably the best sire in the country right now. He sired 6 winners, dirt, turf, synthetic, sprinting, routing, but he does tend to lean. I think he could be more of a miler in the future. I'm just not sure if he's going to get the right trip from the outside. So I'm not exactly sure if I appreciate his chances.
Alrighty, yeah, I would tend to agree. He's one of the longer shots. Lord Miles was the 19 horse. He was scratched. Next up is Contunar, the Japanese horse that we just alluded to. Right now, 54-1, opened at 50-1. And tell us about this horse.
So Continuar, here's another one, another horse that he qualified for the Derby based on the Japanese roads to the Kentucky Derby that Churchill Downs does every year. He has won 2 of his 3 career starts in Japan, but he ran in the UAE Derby last time out against Darvasoda Gake, and he was basically left in his dust. He had no chance after chasing the pace. Was really just didn't really show exactly a good closing kick that day. His sire is Dre Fong, who actually won the Breeders' Cup Sprint back in 2016. So he has a sprinter sire, even though there's more stamina towards the bottom side of his pedigree. He's another one of these horses. I just don't see him as one of these like horses that can get a mile and a quarter. Now he could get pace to chase. They could be running well in the end. I could see it. I mean, his one workout over Churchill Downs where he did work in company with Darvasoda Gake, it wasn't really the greatest looking work. He was all over the racetrack. He was switching leads. It wasn't exactly the most impressive. Now, I think he has the potential to be the longest shot on the field. I think it's well deserved. So even though he has run well in the past, it would be a shocker to me if he wins Saturday.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that horse won as well. The 21 horse is Cyclone Mischief, 30-1 morning line, but up to 50-1. Dale Romans' horse. Tell us about Cyclone Mischief.
So Cyclone Mischief drew into the field today after the Scratcher Practical move, and to me, I think this is a serious this is a serious horse that could play a factor into who wins on Saturday, because he does have speed and he's going to be sent hard from the far outside post come Saturday. He has shown speed in the past. He's won a couple of races in his career. He did go wire to wire in his win at Keeneland, and also won from close to the lead at Gulfstream Park back on January 8th. His 3 stakes tries this year were really quirky at best. He was the favorite in the Holy Bowl against Rocket Cannon, ran a really disappointing 7th that day. His trainer Dale Romans was really scratching his head as to what happened. They went over him. Everything was fine, checked out good. So even though he finished 7th, he continued on the Derby trail, and he came back to score back-to-back third-place finishes in the Fountain of Youth and Florida Derby. His Florida Derby was actually a really good run because he was on the pace. He was close to the lead. They set pretty good practice, and he hung around pretty well at the end. But just missed behind Forte and Mage. So I think this horse has potential. If he wants to have any chance of winning, he's going to be sent hard from the outside, and that could compromise horses such as Reincarnate or possibly other speed horses in this field. So he's good. He's a wild card for sure. I'm not exactly sure though. He's going to be in the winner's circle Saturday.
Alrighty, and next up we have Mandarin Hero, another Japanese horse in here, 20-1 on the morning line, up to 41-1. I believe this is another horse that you said that this is a new entry, right?
Correct. This horse drew into the field today after the scratch of Lord Miles. Mandarin Hero, I think he's been very popular among the American racing fans here because his first 5 races came in Japan and what is known as the NAR racing circuit in Japan, which is kind of like a cup below the top Japanese racing in the country. And he came over from Japan, ran in the Santa Anita Derby, and he just missed behind Practical Move in the Santa Anita Derby. He finished second, beating the nose that day. It was a really incredible run that he put that day, and it seemed like the more ground he got, the further he wants to go. So I think a mile and a quarter is going to be right up his alley. He's going to be around the middle of the pack. He's going to be looking for a pace to chase, but I think this is a very live long shot in Mandarin Hero, especially if he runs the same race he did in the Santa Anita Derby, where he was passing horses, he was splitting horses, and can work out a good trip. I think this horse has a real chance of posting an upset Saturday.
All right, yes, second in the Santa Anita Derby I see right in front of me here. So that is nice to have on the resume there. And last but not least, the 23 horse King Russell, 64-1 right now. Morning line was 50-1. Tell us about King Russell, who will be obviously on the other inside post.
So King Russell, as of right now, he's still technically declared an also eligible. He does need one more defection to draw into the field, but as we saw last year with Rich Strike literally got into the field at about 8:45 in the morning before the cut line. Then he went on to post one of the biggest upsets in the Kentucky Derby history. So King Russell, I think, would definitely fit that mantra. It took him 5 tries to break his maiden, or to win his first race, which he did on February 25th. And then he came back and he finished second in the Arkansas Derby, where he closed into a fast pace, and he was second at the odds of 45-1. So if he does get in, he's most likely going to be in last early on. He's going to probably have to pull off the same moves that Rich Strike did in order to win the Derby. He'll definitely be a long shot for sure, but he'll have to get into the race first.
That's right. He is not in the race yet, and Mandarin Hero's on the inside. That was my mistake. I just forgot that the 23 horse is not technically in yet, unless there's another scratch. Before we do win place show, who could potentially be this year's Rich Strike?
Well, I think it has the potential to. Well, if King Russell does draw in, I think he had the potential to be the next Rich Strike. But of the current horses in the field right now, I would say likely it would be Continue R because from Japan. Because right now everybody's giving him just no shot. I mean, to win. A lot of people did not like the way he worked over at the Churchill Down surface. So we'll say now, he's got no chance. And then come Saturday, he'll be in the winner's circle and posting the biggest upset ever. So, I mean, that's just the way it goes. Because, once you enter that starting gate, anything can happen, as we definitely learned from last year. So, Continue R could be the next Rich Strike for me. Another horse that could possibly be in that same boat is Raise Cane, because even he's 50-1 on the morning line, and even though I don't think he could get the distance of 1.25 miles, if he gets a pace to chase into, I think he'll be coming at the end as well.
Alrighty. All right, let's do win place show. This is one of my favorite parts of our annual Kentucky Derby show, and in addition to when we do the Belmont and the one in Baltimore. Yeah. All right, you go first. Who's your pick to win?
So, for my win pick, I'm going to go with the 14 Angel of Empire. I just like the way he's coming into this race. Back-to-back wins from the Risen Star in the Arkansas Derby. He should be sitting a good trip. I think Flavien Prat has a very good record in the Kentucky Derby. He seemed to get along very well the first time he was aboard him at the Arkansas Derby. And as long as he works out a clean trip, I think he'll be the winner at the end.
Alrighty, I'm going to go with Forte. Good history. On a nice little run right now. A bunch of big wins. A great trainer. So I'm going to go with Forte. Who's your pick to place?
My pick to place, I'm going to go with the Japanese runner Derma Sotogake, number 17. I just really like the way how this horse is coming into the field and the way he's training. His last outrun in the UAE Derby was extremely impressive. I think he could potentially make history on Saturday by being the first Japanese winner of this race, but he's going to have to work out a trip on the outside post of 17, actually post 16 if he's moving into the inside because of scratches, but he's going to have to work out a good trip. I think he will be sent early, but I think he has enough talent where he's going to be around at the end.
All right, I'm going to go somewhere different for my place. I'm going to go Two Phils. I like Two Phils. Has some good past history at Churchill Downs. He won a race there in October last year. Won the Turfway Park race. So I'm just going to go with Two Phils just to be a little different. And how about your show?
For my show, I'm going to go with number 9, Skinner. Skinner he's going to be a deep closer. I think as long as he gets pace to chase into, I like his closing kick is extremely impressive, and I think 1.25 miles is going to be right up his wheelhouse. I like the jockey switch to Juan Hernandez. He's one of the best riders in the country, very aggressive rider. So I'll go with Skinner for third.
Wow, I don't think this has ever happened where we've had a disagreement on our top 3. I'm going with Tapitrice.
Okay.
Pletcher, another Pletcher horse, won the Tampa Bay Derby, which is good. So on a good run right now. So I'm gonna go Tapit Trice for my show. So I like that we disagree here. I think that's kind of funny. All right, tell us about some of the undercard races.
So there's a really good undercard races, both Friday and Saturday. Friday, of course, the Kentucky Oaks Day. Saturday, actually, first off, on Friday marks the return of Rich Strike, who won the Kentucky Derby last year. He'll be running in the Grade 2 Ali Sheba Stakes, $600,000 purse. That race goes actually off at 12:45 Eastern tomorrow. So it'll be exciting to see him back. Also on Friday, there's the Kentucky Oaks for 3-year-old fillies, basically the filly version of the Kentucky Derby. The favorite in that race is Wet Paint for trainer Brad Cox, who won 3 races in a row. And she is coming into the race in really good form. So I like her chances in that race. On Saturday, there's a bunch of races that are going to be extremely exciting, including the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes. It marks the return of Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner Cody's Wish for trainer Bill Mott. I think he's going to be a horse to watch on tomorrow and over the summer. Particularly, he could be running in the Met Mile at Belmont Stakes Day. That's one of the most prestigious races in the country. Also, the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile for 3-year-old horses who were on the Derby trail but didn't exactly quite make it. So this is basically the fallback option for them. I like the horse number 12, Gun Pilot, in that race for trainer Steve Asmussen. He's a very talented horse. 1 mile is going to be right up his alley. I think he'll be have enough speed to last for the end. So overall, it's a very good card both Friday and Saturday at Churchill Downs.
All right, I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm actually going to be away over the weekend, so I got to watch a lot of Derby stuff on my phone. So that's unfortunate. I'm usually never away the weekend of the Derby, but this year I am going to be away. So before we go, you're a New Jersey Devils fan. They beat my Rangers in 7 games. They lost game 1 to Carolina. Do you think that they can turn around and win this series and go to the Eastern Final?
Well, I hope so. First off, just even being this visitor right now, I think is pretty impressive for the Devils' part. It's been an incredible season all the way around. I mean, the emergence of guys like Jack Hughes and Dawson Mercer, obviously the play of Akira Schmid and Vitek Vanacek, Timo Meyer. I mean, all around, it's just been an incredible season for the Devils. It was a thrilling win over the Rangers in that 7-game series, but I know game 1 didn't really go our way on last night. I think most of all they kind of looked flat, and I think maybe they were probably celebrating a little too much, maybe Monday night into Tuesday. I don't know, but either way, I think they can bounce back. I mean, I think the team will play a lot better game 2. Hopefully, Timo Meyer is back for that game after that hit by Trouba. But I think this series can go perhaps 6 or 7. But I think Devils can bounce back.
I did pick New Jersey in 6 over Carolina because of Carolina's injury situation. That I did even like. Timo Meyer was a 0 against the Rangers. He didn't have any points, and I still think that New Jersey is probably going to at least make it an interesting series, 6 or 7. I think Jersey wins in either 6 or 7 still. The big news of the day in sports, the Bucks fire Mike Budenholzer. I'm not surprised they did that. The reason why they waited a week because his brother passed away, so I feel like they purposely waited a week to make the announcement of his firing, just so he could so he can have a second with his family because of that unfortunate situation. But Budenholzer out in Milwaukee. Are you surprised?
I don't necessarily think I'm surprised, but first of all, condolences to his family. That's a very tough loss has to be for him personally and everything. But honestly, I'm honestly not surprised. I know they're coming off one of the best seasons in franchise history, but you can't lose to an 8 seed in the first round. That just can't happen without somebody basically has to be the fall guy for that to happen. So I know they had a great regular season, but they completely fell apart in the postseason. So it doesn't surprise me that he got fired. It would be interesting to see where he goes next. I think a team like the Detroit Pistons could be interesting. because I think he could fit well with that young group over there. But honestly, it does not surprise me that he was let go.
Me neither. I think the Raptors are another one in play for Budenholzer, but I'm interested to see where Milwaukee goes. I mean, I think Ime Udoka's probably thinking maybe he knows that potentially they might be getting James Harden, and they do have a little bit of a young core there in Houston. But Ime Udoka could have gone somewhere else and made a difference, I feel like. So I wonder who Milwaukee's going to replace Budenholzer with. And I wonder if they're having not regret, but I know Darvin Ham picked the Laker job, but you gotta wonder, like, if he was still on that staff, if he would have been considered for that Bucks job.
Probably. I think he would definitely be considered for the job. I think one person that could be interested in the job is Nick Nurse, who just got fired from Toronto. Obviously, I think having the chance to coach Giannis and Chris Middleton, I think would definitely intrigue him. But no, I think Milwaukee probably would regret not hiring Darvin Ham, or at least keeping him around for a possible situation like this. But I think Nick Nurse could be a name to watch for Milwaukee.
All right, my New York Knicks are 1-1 against the Heat. I actually picked the Heat in 6 over the Knicks because of how well Jimmy Butler is playing. They have the experience, and the Knicks, it was the uncertainty with Julius Randle. But with how well Randle played in Game 2, and I know they barely beat the Heat without Jimmy Butler in Game 2, I have no idea how that series is going to go. I think that might end up being the series that ends up going 7 of the 4 left.
Yeah, I think that series could definitely potentially go 7. It's going to depend on the health of Jimmy Butler's ankle. Because obviously without him, I don't think they have any chance of winning that series. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Miami right now has been playing extremely good basketball, even without Jimmy Butler. But obviously they're going to need him if they're going to want to go forward. I think there's a great coaching matchup to Tom Thibodeau and Eric Spoelstra for Miami, but as long as the Knicks can contain the 3-point shooting of Miami, and as long as they can hit their threes as well, I think the Knicks actually have a pretty good edge in that series.
All right, I hope you're right. I think Butler's going to be back for Game 3, but I could be wrong, and maybe Butler's not as healthy. So Knicks' advantage might be the case if Butler isn't back. All right, last thing before we go. Both the Yankees and the Mets are off the shaky starts, and I feel like the Mets have kind of gotten more of a free pass than the Yankees, weirdly enough. I think the Mets deserve every bit of hate, not hate, but like killing in like the media and fans as much as the Yankees. Who do you think will be, or who do you think's going to have the better record by the 4th of July between the two, if you had to guess?
Oh, boy, because... I mean, I can't even describe what I'm watching with the Yankees right now. I mean, it's a mess with what's going on over there. The amount of players they have injured. I mean, I think like 3/4 of their roster is hurt right now, which is insane to me. I mean, the Yankees, they keep relying on injured players to stay healthy, and it never works. I mean, somebody should tell Brian Cashman to just hey, maybe go out and find players who aren't injury prone once in a while, but. As far as the Mets go, I think their biggest problem to me, I don't think it really is their hitting. It's more their starting pitching. Max Scherzer looks like a complete shell of himself over the first few months of the season. I know the suspension for the sticky stuff was not a great look for him at all. I mean, he did not look good in this comeback start. Justin Verlander, I know, came back today, and I think he didn't really exactly look that great either. So, I mean, the Mets are really relying on basically 2 40-year-old pitchers to be like their aces and to lead the charge for them, but it's just not working right now. So I think ultimately both can turn around as the months go on. Yankees do have a pretty tough schedule the month of April and May, so I think as the months go on, I think they can turn around as guys come back and get healthy, but it's pretty ugly to watch both of them right now.
Yeah, I'd say so too. And the reason why I said 4th of July, not Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is 4 weeks from now. But at gunpoint, I probably would say the Mets, because I wouldn't be shocked if Giancarlo Stanton isn't back until after Memorial Day. I'm going to say the Yankees are like the team of the beginning of last year at the second half of this year, if that makes sense. They're going to have like the reverse season of what they had last year this year. And I think that will probably get Yankees Twitter in a frenzy, only for the Yankees to lose to the Astros again.
I mean, you would think after the Yankees got swept by the Astros, like, oh, hey, maybe we need some like changes to upgrade our offense, or maybe we can get like better management. But nah, the Yankees decided, hey, let's give Brian Cashman a 4-year deal extension to do basically not upgrade the offense at all. I mean, the only realistic pitching option he got was Carlos Rodon, who hasn't even thrown a pitch yet this season. And with this back issue, I don't even know if he is going to throw a pitch this year.
Right.
So, I mean, it's insane.
What
is going on with the Yankees right now?
It is insane. It is insane. So, oh my goodness.
Just to answer your question, honestly, I don't think I actually answered the question. I do think both teams will turn around. I do still think the Yankees will have a better record by the 4th of July. But if they don't turn this thing around like relatively soon by Memorial Day, it's going to be tough for them to forget the AL East. Let's worry about the wild card more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. Our friend Doug Saravo's Tampa Bay Rays are in first, and they're playing great baseball.
The Rays are off to one of the greatest starts in MLB history right now. I think they just can't lose. They have amazing pitching. Their hitters are just unbelievable. I mean, everything seems to be going right for the Rays right now, even though I know people keep saying, "Oh, their schedule wasn't that tough to start the year," but they're still playing. You still got to win games, and that's exactly what they're doing right now, to their credit. Exactly.
All right, Jeff. This was a fun show, and I hope to have you on again in a few weeks to do the second of the 3 Triple Crown races.
All right. Thank you for having me on, Madison. It was great to talk to you again.
Of course. Have a good one.